Hi, Dr. Kerry. Hi, Dr. Kerry. I'm going to read out my vlog. This is my second book. But it's stamped from the beginning by Kendi, Ibrahim Kendi, and I'll read some of it out. And it talks about it's a large book, so I'm going to just pick up things that I found interesting that I never knew before from the book. A lot of the book is all about history of how racism as how they have propagated racism from the 15th century, where they brought blacks by chain to the United States to this day. So that's most of the book, what it was talking about, both politics and history and all that stuff. But I'm going to talk about a few things that I found extremely interesting. It talks something about what is racist idea and what is anti-racist idea. It said racist idea is any hierarchical idea that suggests that a racial group is superior or inferior to another group. It talks about racial grouping. It talks about anti-racist idea. Anti-racist idea believes we are equal, and the racist idea believe that somebody is superior than the other. It talks about racial grouping, which I found interesting. So black people are not. They said it's not only black and white; it's also black women as a racial group. It talks about black poor as a racial group. It talks about white poor, black, lesbian, and gays as a racial group. And then it talks also about ethnicity. They are also another racial group. And it said that collection of all these groups, they can also be differentiated by gender, so sexuality, class, ethnicity, nationality, and even skin color. And it talks about how all the collection of these racial groups have also been a target, has been targeted with racist ideas. You know, and then it talks about how, because of the grouping of the different group, if you belong to one or more of those group, then that's intersectionality. They also use intersectionality in racism. They said if you believe you are a black person and lazy and poor, if you put all these three together or two of them together, then you are one person intersecting and identifying into more than one group. So it talks about that. It talks about how we have talked from time immemorial. What are the fundamental questions that are about racism in this country? And it has been consistent from day one of racism in this in America. It said a racial disparity also exists because of the American society, and why the reason because why because of slavery. Why do we have slavery? Why do we have Jim Crow? Why is black American targeted? Why is the policing? It talks about why 40% of America of black men in America are incarcerated. Why the black men only represent 13% of the population. It talks about that. It talks about a lot of other things that I found very interesting. It talks about how they don't even think we are there's black people are intelligent at all. It talks about the origin of racism from the 15th century. It talks about how from you know each era come up with their own justification for racism. It talks about how they said saving the soul. So the Christian just save the soul, make the black man white, but don't save the body, leave the body. Saving soul and not the body. You can enslave the body but save the soul. It talks about the time of enlightenment, how they denied African blacks to, even though they are enlightening, they still deny them opportunities. It talks about reconstruction, how, from civil rights, from civil war to the reconstruction of America to civil rights movements. It talks about all that. Most importantly, again, it talks about two types of, which I found very interesting, two types of kinds of racist idea. He said there's one group that believe that black people are genetically inferior. That's biology, that's DNA. He talks about the second group that believe that we are created equal, but our environment, the African environment and the culture makes them not equal to any other culture, especially to the white culture, to the white person. He said that their African it is that inferiority is imbibed in their culture and in their environment. So it talks about that. And then it talks about something also very interesting that how anti-racist idea is what creates racist idea is what creates racist policy, and racist policy is how these policies are institutionalized. How racism is institutionalized in everything from our education to the book we read in school to our society to segregation to where we live, what we do, to where we belong, how they categorize everything. It's all born from policies. And it also talks about how we always abrogate racism to ignorant and people that are not educated, but find out that no, it's actually not always like so, because people that are making policies, some of them are educated and they're politicians, so it means that they are creating all these policies, they are having all this racist idea that creates all these policies that are institutionalized into our way of life to benefit themselves. That's the bottom line. So he said, look at our entertainment industry, look at our school system, look at everything. Everything is all because of that. So, and he said all this racist idea is the things that is wrong with black is he said they always said what is wrong with the black people. What is wrong with black people is black people, and it's not true. He said black people have been oppressed and given limited opportunity. They have been barred from having a good things of life. They are regulated. They regulated their families, where they could live, where they could move. They created labor contracts where they can pay less for black people than their white counterpart. They deem white people to be naturally lazy, lawless, and oversexed. They come up with all these things, and he argues that that discriminatory action is wrought by self-interest, and they justify all this hate and ignorance, and that hate and ignorance are symptoms. They are not the cause. So the cause is really those that are in power, that are institutionalizing all these policies. It talks about how it talks about I found that very interesting. It talks about assimilation, that the assimilationists are those that we thought are fighting for fighting for equality. It talks about Lincoln, that we deem as the father of emancipation, and yet in some of his comments and policies, they do not present the reality of racism. He said, Lincoln, in one of Lincoln's comments, he says there's a difference between the white and black race, which I believe will ever forbid the two races living together in terms of social, politics, and equality, and that he favored having the superior position assigned to the white race. He talks about W.E. Du Bois, which I found interesting. W.E. Du Bois was supposed to be the light of the black community in those days. He was highly educated. It was in the 1800s. He has everything going on he was actually the light of the black community. But he made some comments that Kennedy doesn't agree with. He said that he believed he extolled the version of the perspective of talented 10th, which is the 10% highest achieving black Americans. He made a comment at the American Negro Academy in 1897 about that and the heritage of slavery is why there is immorality and crime and laziness among the Negro themselves. He talks about Barack Obama, who also, when he was making some of the campaign speech, talks about affirmative action and crime, that why are people worrying about that? They shouldn't be worrying about that. This comment and some of the policies he makes too is still affirming racism. It's still perpetuating racism, even knowingly or unknowingly. It talks about that. It talks about a lot of things. For me, as as a black woman coming all the way from Africa, it's really sad. And as a Christian, this book really, really touched me a lot. It touches my heart. I was very wrought by the time I finished. I was reading it, and then I bought the Audible and started listening to it. And I think I'm going to still listen to it. I'm going to still reread it and listen to it like 10 times over, because it's a lot of information. But he also talks about how right now Obama was the progress. Actually, I remember I wrote that down somewhere, that Obama is a racial progress when we elected Obama, but then we elected Donald Trump, and then we have racist progress where the Republicans start to suppress voting rights and voter ID laws, and came up with justification and said it was voter fraud. So that is the new age. Like he's putting new wine in an old bottle. That's exactly what it is. It's a lot of information. I'm so grateful that I'm able to read it and see how I can use it, to help my community. Thank you, Dr. Catherine. Dr. Kerry, sorry.